In Luke chapter 22, verse 31. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. Let's just stop right there. Jesus is talking to Simon, who would become known as Peter. He's calling him Simon here. And he said, Satan demanded to have you. Now we see in the book of Job where Satan actually went and asked God for permission to do certain things to Job. Well, Satan was demanding to have Simon. And that tells you a couple of things about Simon, about God, and about the devil. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the devil. He will at times make demands or requests to have certain people. But he can't do that unless God gives him permission. And when it says demand to have you, he's not going to get to keep them. He's asking for permission to go after them. And God allows it sometimes. And this is where it's hard to understand certain things, but that's just the way it is. So Jesus says to Simon, look, Satan has demanded to have you. And now this tells you something about Simon also. Simon is worth having. Alright? Simon is a threat to Satan. That's why Satan wants to come after him. That's why he went after Job. So, let me encourage you. If Satan has been coming after you, alright, he's gotten permission to do that, but that's because you are a threat to him. If Satan hasn't been bothering you much lately, you're not much of a threat to him. So if you want to be attacked by Satan, start being a threat to him. Right? Which you can be a threat to him by obeying God. You can be a threat to him by being evangelistic, by being really heavily in prayer, by standing up under trials. All these things are ways you threaten Satan, and he will come after you. All right. So, but what do we learn about God? Look here. It says, verse 32. But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail, and when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Alright? Jesus is saying, look, he's demanded to have you, but I'm making sure your faith is not going to fail. In other words, it's not going to be up to you. It's not up to you to make sure your faith doesn't fail. I'll take care of that. You know, there's a scripture that says, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. You don't have to rely on your own strength. You don't have to rely on your own faith even. Because Jesus is always praying for you, always interceding for you, making sure your faith won't fail. Now, it may stumble, it may struggle, it may fail to meet certain challenges, but it's not going to ultimately fail. You're going to ultimately succeed. And he tells Simon this. He says, and after, he says, when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. In other words, you're going to turn away, but when you turn again, when you come back to me, strengthen your brothers. In other words, not only am I praying for you, Simon, that your faith doesn't fail, I'm counting on you to be able to strengthen the rest of your brothers who might be struggling. So, we have big plans for you, Simon. That's what Jesus is saying. But now it says, Peter said to him. Alright, Luke's calling him Peter. Jesus was calling him Simon. Lord, I am ready to go with you, both to prison and to death. Now, ironically, what Peter said would eventually be true. Peter did become that man. But at this exact moment in time, it wasn't true. And Jesus tells him very clearly, the verse 34, Jesus said, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny 3 times that you know me. So sometime within that next 24-hour period, Jesus is telling Peter, you think you're ready to go to prison and even die with me? You're going to be such a scaredy cat that you're going to deny 3 times. And the reason, and how I'm going to make sure you remember this is there's going to be a rooster crowing. And that rooster crows, you're going to know if you denied me 3 times. Now, at this point, Peter either doesn't get it or He can't even fathom that he would ever do this. See, Peter really loves Jesus. But remember the verses we read right before. Satan is demanding to have him. And Satan is going to overpower Simon in a moment of weakness, and Simon is going to fulfill this prophecy of Jesus'. So, Simon knows his weakness, and he comes and attacks him, and that's what he does. But let me tell you something. When we get to Acts, and we've got to get through Luke and then John, but when we get to Acts, there's two primary characters there, Paul and Peter. And Peter became one of the greatest heroes the church has ever known. So, that should encourage you as well, even if you struggle big time, if you blow it big. There's still plenty of mercy, and God can still have great plans for you. All right? Hey, come back tomorrow for the next edition of Take 5.